Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all okay, and I hope you're ready for some unpopular opinions, because that's the topic of this video. So before I get into this, I need it to be made absolutely clear that these are my own unpopular opinions. So I don't want people to agree with me. These are just opinions that I have that aren't really backed up by the majority of fans in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So the MCU now has been around for 12 years, almost 13 years. 2008 Iron Man was the first thing we got. So 13 years, that's almost as old as a lot of its fan base. Now that's not to say it's a children's franchise, it's not, otherwise I wouldn't be here making this video. There's something in this franchise for everyone, which is why it's the most successful and the largest franchise in movie history. I mean, you've got people pretty much expect a Marvel movie to come out and make $1 billion straight away. Now 10, 15, 20 years ago that was unheard of. $1 billion movie was a once in a few years kind of thing. It was a pinnacle achievement. But now you've got, over the last 5 years, Marvel has sort of had Civil War, which has hit $1 billion. They've had Captain Marvel, which has hit $1 billion. They've had Infinity War and Endgame, both hit $1 billion. They've had Black Panther, which, you know, shattered domestic records in America, 700 million just at home, 1.3, almost 1.4 billion worldwide. So it really has set the tone for the success of movies within the cinema industry, which at the moment is in a little bit of jeopardy, but that's a different discussion. But obviously with the size of this franchise, it is going to invite a lot of criticism, and a lot of criticism that it gets is that most people have a problem with these movies following the same generic formula. Now they call it the Marvel formula. Apparently every single movie sort of follows the same route, like a first act, third act, fight the monster in the final act, and then that's it. Now, while I'm not going to deny that, people are saying the movies are bland and generic, and that could not be more untrue. And that sort of leads me into my first unpopular opinion, which is there isn't a single bad MCU movie. Okay, now this is my opinion, but no, there isn't a single bad MCU movie. They're all rewatchable, and for me that's what sort of separates a line between a good movie and a bad movie. A bad movie is one that I would finish watching for the first time and never look at again. I would never even build up the interest to rewatch it. That's what counts as a bad movie to me. And all 23 movies we have so far in the MCU, I cannot say that for, because if any one of them were on right now, I would sit there and watch it. So that, for me, I can't call that a bad movie because of that reason. Also a solid case, that a lot of them are repetitive and follow the same basic formula of the first, second and third act. This might be true, but they all bring something different in their own regards. So yes, people will say, if we look at Thor, the first Thor and the first Iron Man, both start off with obviously Tony showing off his Jericho missile, the iconic pose, we all know it. So that starts off with him at his peak, showing what he does, his power. He has everything. Now Thor similarly starts off, it's his coronation. I think he was about to become king, so he's at the peak, he's at the top. And then all of a sudden, in both Iron Man and in Thor, they both face the grueling task of having all the power that they have stripped from them. So Tony was trapped in a cave, had nothing, didn't have his money, didn't have his inventions, didn't have anything. This is a guy who had everything given to him in life. Fair enough, he made it, but you know, he had his own AI butler who could do anything for him. He would invent things that would do other things for him, but now he was stuck in a cave, stripped of everything he has, and he had to prove that he is who he is. Now similarly, in Thor, after what he did in Jotunheim, his father Odin took his power, took Mjolnir from him and banished him to Earth. So in a sense, both Tony and Thor were sent back down to Earth, literally in Thor's case, metaphorically in Tony's. And Steve's one was a bit different. See, in Steve's first movie, he was the opposite of the other main two. See, with him, he had no power. He's never known power. I think that was actually one of the lines. A man, I'm not even going to bother, I'm going to misquote it. But yeah, see, with Steve, it was the opposite. He got given power, and had to prove he was worthy of it, which he did in spectacular fashion. One of my favourite movies, Captain America the First Avenger. But yeah, a lot of the movies, if you do look very much into them, you will find a lot of the movies have sort of the same-ish kind of formula, but taking nothing away from them, I think they're still all great movies. They're all good movies. There isn't a single one of those movies that I would call trash, or, you know, just I wouldn't watch, because that's not true. I could watch any single one of them. So that's my first point. That's my first unpopular opinion. There is not a single bad MCU movie. The only movie I would say is below par, still not bad, is Thor 2. Now the final battle in that was just a mess. Okay, we were following Eric Selvig and the assistant, and they were sort of planting these things around everywhere, and then there was a separate story of Mjolnir sort of going left and right from Earth to these other realms, so we were following that also. And then there was Malekith sort of doing his thing and releasing the ether into all the realities, and then yeah, we just had a few Dark Elf foot soldiers going about with Thor fighting them. So it was just all a scattered mess. There wasn't, if someone had told me, okay, explain the final battle of Thor 2, I really wouldn't know what to say to that person, apart from Eric made the bad guy and the ship disappear at the end. That's it. That's the only defining moment of that battle that I could tell you. Now, my second one, this is unpopular opinion number 2. That's Infinity War is a better movie than Endgame. Now, this might not be as unpopular as most of the other unpopular opinions, but in my opinion, the pace of Infinity War was just a lot better than Endgame. It was just like a non-stop 2-hour action movie. Like, I mean, look how it started off. It started off with the Asgardians getting absolutely fucked up by Thanos. We had Hulk getting his ass handed to him. We had Loki's neck getting snapped. And this was in the first 10 minutes, 5 minutes, if that. And then from there, it was just a constant, you know, non-stop thrill ride. Some people think the screen time was like robbed of some characters in Infinity War, because I know I think it was Tony Stark had close to half an hour of screen time, whereas Captain America had just over 6 minutes. Now that's very disproportionate considering they're both the same main characters and they deserve to have that, but with the amount of characters that was in that movie, I think it was handled really well, because you have to think that there was more than 10, 15, 20 established characters in that movie, which was only 2.5 hours long. So you can't have 10 people all with their own separate half an hour of screen time. That it just could not be done. So the way it was done, I really applaud that, because it was an amazing movie. Every character was handled as well as they could have been in that time that they were given, and yeah, it just really helped with how good the movie was. And I also like the fact that Infinity War was a Thanos movie more than anything. Now, before they were released, we were told we were going to get Infinity War Part 1 and Part 2. So I'm kind of glad that they changed it to 2 separate movies. So it was Infinity War and Endgame. Infinity War was a Thanos movie. It started with Thanos and it ended with Thanos. It ended with him sat there on his farm smiling because he had won. Now that was an amazing movie. I mean, that ending traumatized a lot of people, but it was an amazing movie and it was an amazing ending. And another reason is that Infinity War had more had the better character moments for me. So, like, you know, the standout moments, like we had Iron Man versus Thanos 1v1 for the first time. That was just unreal. That was amazing. We had Thor coming into Wakanda, which is just, I've seen so many reactions to that. I could watch that all day on loop. We had Doctor Strange showcasing his powers in one of the most incredible sequences I've ever seen, which was there was no words for it. Peter becoming an official Avenger, which was a really good scene. You saw Tony knight him, and then, you know, that moment where he was stood there for a few seconds just taking in the fact that he was now an Avenger, something he's always wanted. Rhodey, this was War Machine. Rhodey, he sort of said fuck you to the Accords, and this was right at the start of the movie. That was a really pivotal point in the movie, because in Civil War we know he took Tony's side, but his actions in Infinity War in just swiping away General Ross's screen and request to arrest Captain America just goes to show that Rhodey now saw that the Accords were bullshit. Captain America was right. They can't have a governing body telling them when they can't and when they can go save someone. So James Rhodes proved that correct. Right, okay, camera just collapsed, I'm sorry. But where was I? Yeah, Wanda's breaking point. I feel like killing Vision, waiting a few seconds, seeing him brought back to life and then murdered was Wanda's breaking point. That's gonna be a major part of her madness in her series WandaVision. It'll be a big motivation, well actually it's the only motivation for everything she's gonna fuck up. It's gonna be because she reached her breaking point in Infinity War, having to kill the person she loved and then a minute later having to watch him get murdered again. So yeah, that was a really pivotal moment for her character in Infinity War as well. Banner and the Hulk. Now that one, it split a lot of people. A lot of people didn't like the fact that we didn't see Hulk in Infinity War. I was one of those people. We saw him in the first 5 minutes, but we saw him in a way we'd never seen him before, having the shit beaten out of him, and that was so bad he didn't want to come out again. So that just goes to show you how powerful Thanos was. And yeah, overall I would say Infinity War is the better movie between Infinity War and Endgame. A lot of people might agree, but I know a lot of people just think Endgame is the better movie. But in my opinion, in terms of characters and what we got in the content, Infinity War was slightly better than Endgame for me. That brings us to point number 3, unpopular opinion number 3, which is Spider-Man is not being used properly within the MCU. Now I know I'm not the only one who thinks that, but a lot of people like his character in the MCU. They like that he's fit into the MCU. I did a video on why Spider-Man 3, the Spider-Man 3 we're about to get, Marvel's MCU Spider-Man 3, could be a bad movie. Now for similar reasons, this is why my unpopular opinion is in here. His dependence on Tony in Homecoming, his dependence again on Tony in Far From Home, the Edith glasses, again it was too heavy of a link to another character for Spider-Man's own movie. If this was in a movie which wasn't a Spider-Man movie, that would have been absolutely fine, but this is his own movie. He needs to have his own battles, his own moments, and having Tony be a big influence in that. I get that he looked up to Tony, but they could have left that at Homecoming. They did that, and at the end he refused the suit. He wanted to go off on his own way. I respected that. That was a good ending. But then to have him so heavily tied in again in Far From Home was just wasn't a good move in my opinion. Spider-Man himself is the biggest name in Marvel. He's the biggest superhero. He's bigger than Superman, he's bigger than Batman, like in terms of revenue he generates. He is the biggest hero in the world ever. Now for someone like that to be in the MCU, you can't, and to also say that I can't really think of any defining Spider-Man moments in the MCU. That's just something that's not really fair. Spider-Man should be a lot bigger than he is. Ideally, Spider-Man should have his own universe, his own franchise. That's how big of a character he is. But he's been sort of diluted down, washed down version that we've got in the MCU, and I don't like that. And I know a lot of people don't like that. So yeah, that was a quick point number 3. Spider-Man is not being used properly, and that's just my opinion on it. Now number 4, this is quite it slips from unpopular to controversial actually. I think the Mandarin twist was good for the movie it was in. Okay, now I get a lot of people who know the Mandarin from the comics would have expected the actual Mandarin, but we didn't get that. We got a rich guy pretending to be the Mandarin, which in my opinion for this day and age, the way things are in today's world, was a much better angle to go in. It makes much more sense that an Asian sort of villain terrorist was being used to spread fear in the West, but in actual fact pulling the strings behind him was a rich powerful guy from the West. Do you know, so that was a really good twist. I think it is. Now, Iron Man 3, a lot of people don't actually like the movie. I love the movie. I think the villain of Iron Man 3 wasn't Killian. It was Tony's own anxiety. It was himself. It was his mind. It was him dealing with the aftermath of, obviously, the New York battle that had just happened before in the first Avengers. That movie was a lot about Tony sort of finding himself than it was about actually fighting a villain, which he did do, which it was really good. There was a really good character moments, you know, from when he went to the hardware store and he bought a load of little gadget things, and he pretty much made his own gadgets, and went into oh my god, I'm so bad at this. He went into where Killian was and obviously found the Mandarin, the actor. So that was a really good moment. And the guy who was playing the Mandarin was watching a Liverpool game, Liverpool vs Chelsea. I think he was a Liverpool fan. I'm a Liverpool fan, so that was quite fun. But yeah, the Mandarin twist was good, and that's my opinion on it. Now, number 5 is about a character that a lot of people are split on, and it's Captain Marvel. I love her, but I think she should have been introduced in Age of Ultron, which was the original plan. I know a couple of years ago that was leaked towards in the final third when Fury comes up on the helicarrier. She was supposed to be with him. She should have been either, I don't know, lifting the helicarrier, or she would have just been there. But they didn't go along with that. Now that, in my opinion, is what sort of added to the hate that her character currently gets from fans, because she was introduced a month before the final conclusion to this entire franchise, just 1 month before. Now, and then she had come in and straight away she was fighting with Thanos. She was, at the start, she went and she apprehended him, and towards the end she destroyed his ship. Now that was all amazing. I've got no problems with that. But the only problem I have is that she wasn't established enough to do that. It didn't mean as much coming from her. If she had been in Age of Ultron, we would know that she's been through more things with the Avengers. So them fighting Thanos together would have felt a lot better than it did, because it kind of did feel like, you know, this Thanos is looking at her thinking, who are you? Which is kind of what I think anyway. Which is sort of like what Thanos did to Scarlet Witch, because obviously the younger version of him didn't recognise her. But yeah, she just wasn't established enough to have the role that she did in Endgame, and I wish she had been introduced in the MCU a lot sooner, so we could have got that from her. Because in terms of character, I love her. I love the movie. A lot of people didn't, but then again, a lot of people don't like a lot of things, so can't please everyone. Number 6, Civil War should have been a standalone movie, or it should not have been a Captain America movie, especially his final one. Firstly, it had too many returning characters to be considered just a Captain America movie. In screen time, I think Tony, Robert Downey Jr. got similar screen time, if not pretty much the same screen time as Captain America in Captain America's own movie. Now I get that some people, they wanted Tony to be the bad guy of Civil War, but there were so many ways they could have done the Civil War storyline without it being a Captain America third movie. Because for me, I wanted the reintroduction of Zola, who was stupidly wasted in The Winter Soldier for 5 minutes of explaining the evil plan, and then that's it, he got blown up by a missile. And I don't know if that's the end or if we're going to see him again, but I just feel like that was a really cheap moment, especially after we saw blueprints of his suit in the first Captain America. So I really thought he'd have an involvement in Civil War. I thought it'd be more about Captain America and his past, but turns out it was just politics, and it involved pretty much every other Avenger. So it was kind of disappointing. I really did want. Zemo was fine. Zemo could have worked with Zola together. They could have destroyed the Avengers, but no, we just got this sort of plot of Tony's parents and Zemo trying to get that information to Tony, and it just felt a little bit, I don't want to say it, but bland. Yeah, I just wanted more of a Captain America story for Captain America's last film, because now, obviously after Infinity War and Endgame, we're not going to see Steve Rogers. I'm talking about Captain America, obviously we've still got in Anthony Mackie, but Steve Rogers, that's it. His story's come to an end in the MCU, and it's a shame that we never got to see Zola be a bigger part of his story. So yeah, that's point number 6. Number 7 includes the Netflix heroes. Now, if you don't know, the Netflix heroes are Jessica Jones, Daredevil, Luke Cage and Iron Fist. All really good series, some a lot stronger than the other. Daredevil is head and shoulders above the rest. Luke Cage I would put in second, Jessica Jones third, and a very weak first season of Iron Fist puts it last. The second season was better, but I have to say Iron Fist was a lot better when he appeared in Luke Cage than he was in his own series. He was just handled a lot better when he was with Luke. It just felt a lot better. Seeing them two together on screen is very good, and I wish we got more of that sort of a heroes for hire kind of thing, but maybe not. But yeah, the unpopular part of this opinion was that they were better off alone. I like the fact that there wasn't too heavily tied into the MCU. It was part of the MCU because in a lot of the series, you know, Captain America's mentioned, the Hulk battle in Harlem is mentioned in Luke Cage. Obviously, all that stuff is mentioned. So you know it is tied, but it wasn't all forced together. So we got to see the best of these 4 heroes in their own separate ways, which was really good. We wouldn't have got the amazing Daredevil series that we had if he was mixed in with the Avengers and all them heroes. Like, don't get me wrong, I would love to see Matt Murdock and Peter Parker together, or Matt as Peter's lawyer in the 3rd movie, obviously trying to argue the case to the world that he's not Spider-Man. That would be really good. But for what we got, the introductions that these characters had, the stories that we got from them, especially Matt's with Kingpin, I loved that. It's one of the best series I've ever seen, if not one of the best comic book series I've seen. So I'm really glad they were separate. I know a lot of people wanted them to be into the MCU as soon as possible, or even for Infinity War and Endgame, but I'm glad they sort of stayed separate. If they had to be, I would have introduced the Netflix heroes on Cap's side in Civil War. Like, obviously we could have had, the Cap side was sort of the weaker side. They had Cap, Bucky, Hawkeye, Ant-Man and the Winter Soldier, and the other side had Spider-Man, Iron Man, Black Panther, Vision, Spider-Man, Black Widow. So they were, and War Machine, obviously they were heavily outgunned, so it would have been good to see Cap's team being heavily overpowered, and then out of nowhere Luke could have came in and just slammed Iron Man to the ground. Jessica could have came in and just threw Black Widow somewhere. It would have been really good to see them introduced like that. But also, yeah, I'm glad they stayed in their own grounded universe. It was really good the way we got it. So yeah, let me know if you were one of the people who wanted them in the MCU, because I wasn't one of those people. In the future, yeah, of course I'd love for them to be in movies, but for what we got, it was amazing. And obviously I'm upset that it got cancelled, but it only got cancelled so Marvel can get back their ownership from Netflix. And my last point is that Cap going to the past with Peggy was the perfect ending for him. I know a lot of people think it was a selfish move because he's taken away the life that she had. Those people don't understand how time travel works, because as we were told, what's already happened in the past has already happened. That can't change. If you go to the past and do something else, you're creating a new timeline. So when Cap went back in the past and decided to live his life with Peggy, he didn't change anything. Peggy's future that we saw in the Agent Carter series, I don't know if people have watched that, you might want to go search that up, but the life she had in the Agent Carter series, especially after Steve frozen, all that, none of that changed. All of that still happened. Steve changed none of that. The life he went back in time to live, he created a new timeline for. He didn't take anything from anyone. He wasn't selfishly changing someone's life. That was his own timeline, the way he wanted it. I thought it was perfect as well, because A lot of people called it selfish, but I didn't see the point in that, because when the snap happened, there were some heroes who decided to just completely give up, start their own families and just move on. But there were some heroes, Steve, who just did not move on. He kept going. I think he was doing support groups for people who had lost others, and yeah, he just kept. He said, some people move on, but not us. He was one of those people, and for 5 years he kept going, and in the end they saved everyone. So of course he deserved to go back in time and just, you know, live out his life the way he wanted to, because he's given everything he wants. There's nothing left for him in this sort of time. If you think Bucky needs to go off on his own way, he's had his mind cleared. That's a man on his own journey now. So I feel like Cap never really adjusted to life in the current time. You could always tell he wanted Peggy and he wanted to go back, especially that moment in Endgame when he saw her. I knew he was going to go back, and he did, which was a perfect ending for him. So yeah, those are my 8 controversial, well, unpopular Marvel opinions. That was a lot of talking to the camera. But yeah, if you guys have any more unpopular opinions, if you strongly disagree with any of mine, or if you agree with any of mine, just let me know in the section below. Or if you want me to do an unpopular opinions for DC or another franchise, I've seen a lot of things, so just don't be afraid to ask. And that's the end of the video. So as always, leave a like, subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you for the next one.